Hello everyone, and today I will tell you about the best Chinese anime I have ever seen. So, let's start.
So it might not be enough. No, it might not be enough.
People tend to meme a lot about Chinese anime in this community, but did you ever imagine that a genuine example of such a thing could turn out this spectacular? The King's Avatar in English is indeed a Chinese production based on the award-winning web novel series of the same name. While it is certainly not the first Chinese anime that has been produced over the years, I do believe that this is in fact the first time one of them has actually gotten overall praise and popularity from the general anime community. Perhaps the main reason for this is that the King's Avatar feels like it fills a hole that has so far been left unexplored by Japan. While there have been tons of anime in recent years about otaku, games, and people somehow being transported to game-like fantasy worlds, this is the first one I've ever seen which is actually about esports. There is nothing supernatural, fetishized or parody-oriented about Quan, conceptually speaking. Instead it is a story about what it's like for people in their 20s to go about their everyday lives as professional gamers, and everything that comes along with being a part of that industry. As someone who has been watching esports for almost a decade now, for a variety of different games and genres, I must say that this anime interested me a lot from the beginning, and while it's not exactly perfect, it definitely hits a lot of the right notes. This story primarily follows Yakshu, I hope I said that right, a former top-level professional gamer of a fictional game called Glory, who was once recognized as perhaps the best player in the world. However, that time has passed, and in the recent years he has started to decline on the professional scene as he's gotten older, and in the first episode of the anime, he gets promptly screwed over by his own team owners who want some new blood to become the new face of the team. He is forced to hand over his account to a younger team recruit and is told to publicly announce his retirement, effectively meaning that he's not allowed to compete professionally again for a full year, which considering his age is basically the same as ending his career for good. However, Yakshu isn't willing to give up on the game. He's dedicated half his life to quit so easily, and ends up getting a job at a local internet cafe where he decides to start anew in glory by creating a new character called Lord Grimm upon the opening of the game's newest server. And this begins the journey of an old dog trying to rise from the ashes, to once again make a name for himself, this time primarily by trying to break speed records in PvE, right unlike the PvP-oriented pro scene, with the added challenges of having to find new players to team up with, also doing it all anonymously. In general, the anime revolves around a number of areas. These include the in-game events starting to play out of the new server, as well as numerous issues Yakshu finds himself having to deal with in his newfound personal life, such as interaction with his friends and CEO workers at the internet cafe, as well as connections with old pro-gamer acquaintances, who starts to raise their eyebrows at who this new record-breaking Lord Grimm guy is supposed to be. What I really like about it overall is that it all feels very believable. Yes, the main character is pretty overpowered, relative to his surroundings. But for once I feel that's perfectly natural considering that we are talking about one of the most experienced and formerly perhaps most skilled player in the world, now playing alongside a bunch of ordinary people. The way this is presented is also quite respectable. Yakshu acts mostly like an old mentor to the people he plays with and teaches them a lot of tricks he's picked up over the years in terms of itemization, raid, tactics, class, and skill builds, old out of meta strategies and more. For anyone that's knowledgeable about professional gaming in general, there's a lot of relate to here, and although not every single detail about Glory's functions and explained in the anime, but it explains enough for you to get the general gist of it. Glory is an MMORPG which, in this universe, is supposedly the biggest and the most competitive game in the world. In a general sense, it seems to function more or less like your typical MMO, but the biggest difference is that your APM, action per minute, how fast you are at giving in-game commands, is a big deal here, whereas most MMOs have capped casting times for spells and abilities. In Glory, the combat functions more like a fighting game where you can actually act faster if you can input the commands fast enough on your keyboard, as well as chain advanced combos together. As a result, it is not just a game where experience, intuition and strategy is important, but also your physical ability as a player. While there are certainly a lot of good aspects about this anime, though of course not everything is perfect. Perhaps most notably, the anime feels like a very low-budget production. The in-game fight scenes generally have average animation at best, and you can also spot a lot of reused footage, especially in the first few episodes, presumably an attempt at cutting corners and saving money. There is also some really strange and almost experimental feeling 3D for various types of panorama shots of the internet cafe's gaming hall and the people playing in it, though fortunately these shots only last for a few seconds per episode on average. But either way, this is hardly an action-driven series at heart, so the medicore animation isn't really a huge deal in my opinion. Regarding the audio though, the King's avatar comes with the obvious twist of being in Chinese. Yes, this is not a Japanese dub, it is the genuine Chinese original. Of course, this is by no means a bad thing, but for people used to hearing Japanese spoken in anime, it can be a somewhat alien experience, hearing a completely different language being spoken instead. Though, you get used to it in time. I have to tell you that I even liked this Chinese dubbing, but of course, it has no chance against Japanese. If you have some time, I recommend you to watch this anime. And now, you can leave a like, a comment and subscribe. See you soon.